tell you what, I wanted to say I should have done this first. A little bit of housekeeping. I'm just going to mention March 23rd, which is next week. We need to sign up for someone for refreshments. If anyone would, the sign up is over there. And then also on the 30th, Kathy's going to be gone. So if there'd be someone who'd be willing to set up and also a doorkeeper. So on the 30th, we'll need that. I can also come here too. If another person could help, then we could get that taken care of as well. But if you could think about that, and if you're able to help on that day, then that would be great. So the sign up, but let us know about the 30th if you can help set up on that. Okay. I think the thing we need to do now is our Bible verses. Has anybody been working on these? Who's been actually working on it? Anyone? Ooh. This isn't good.
Kathy knows it by heart.
Yeah, she knows them by heart.
Kathy, oh, Kathy.
Who said it was you? Must be you.
No one. No one.
Not me.
Okay. Well, tell you what, let's go over this. We're gonna look at Psalm 121. I think what we'll do, we'll just go over the first 4 verses and probably, and then the last 2 we'll go over once, and then we'll just repeat the verse twice. So just follow. If we could start together on Psalm 121, 1 through 4.
Oh,
I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Let's go back over just 121, 3 and 4, because those are easy to get mixed up. So we'll just run those through our mind once. Psalm 121, 3 and 4. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Let's do that one more time. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Very good. And then let's just recite 1 through 4 together, and then we'll call it done for today. Okay. Psalm 121, 1 through 4. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. Behold, he that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Yeah, my cards, I mixed them up. Okay, that's not a good thing.
I lost mine when we moved.
Tell you what, let me give you mine. And I mean, I can use my Bible. There you go. There you go. Okay. All righty. So let's go ahead and dig in. Psalms 81 to 85. And I need to open my Bible. That's what was missing. I thought, what am I missing here? My Bible.
Somebody's been gone so long.
Yes. You can always tell when I'm tired. I have the worst time ever since I've gone through the cancer treatment stuff. Every time when I get tired, maybe it was bad before, but it's noticeably bad. When I'm tired now, I forget words. I get a little confused.
Same way.
Getting to, I can do A, okay, B, okay, C, okay. But if I have to go A, B, C, then I have trouble. But we're good. We can get started now. So anyway, does everyone have a handout for today? I tell you what, I looked for them and I couldn't find any extra. So if you could kind of share, would that be possible there, just so you could keep up with the questions? So, okay.
Elisa,
Yes, are they in the closet?
they were on the Welcome Center.
Oh,
Counter.
okay. Tell you what.
What do you
uh,
need?
I could go get one.
Could you,
Yeah,
there's
get a
two
couple.
places to look, the Welcome Center
Yes.
or in our closet way on the back on the left. There's some extra ones there.
Whose closet?
Our, the storage closet right
Oh.
across from
Where I get my.
where we do the refreshments. But our shelves are way in the back
Okay.
on the left.
I'll go look.
Okay, and they
Elisa?
are on, yes,
How many people are in the room?
right now, 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 17.
Thank you.
Yeah, must be they're getting ready to print. We'll
The
have
printer's fixed.
The printer is fixed.
Oh, I didn't know
Thank
the
you.
printer was down.
Yeah, it's fixed now. So if you need them to print more, it's done.
Okay,
It's ready.
I guess we're good. Thank you. Okay, so our title here on 81 to start off with, to the chief musician upon Gittith. And
No.
this is in a Psalm of Asaph. And what I'm learning as I go through these Asaph Psalms, we find that he's a person who asks a lot of questions. In this first one, we don't see quite as many, I don't believe. But as we've gone along, he just is a person, has a question, he asks it. But it says, upon Gittith. And so there are different ideas about that. It might be something related to Gath, an instrument that comes from Gath. Obed-Edom of the Hittites where the ark rested. Maybe that had something to do with it. Goliath of Gath. But the and the root is the joyful hymn of the treaders of grapes. And we won't look up all the references there, but this is actually, it points to the antiquity of this psalm. You know, the antiquity of what we're looking at. Again, this was probably written close to 3,000 years ago.
Wow.
And so sometimes musical notations, the instruments, so forth, we can't always pinpoint exactly what they are. And this is an example of that. But let's go ahead and look at verses 1 through 3 and what was being asked of the people. Oh, thank you. Can I ask where you found those in the closet?
I didn't see any of the current ones in the closet, but they were
Oh,
at the
great.
welcome center, so I
Super.
just brought them down.
Thank you. So if we have another question, I'll know right where to go. Okay, so 1 through 3.
I knew I'd like.
What I put down is that they would sing aloud and be joyful. More like
Okay,
a festival type. When they praise the Lord, be happy. You're praising the Lord.
okay, yes.
That's what I got from it.
Yes, it's call to worship. What else did they ask in verses 2 and 3?
There's 4 verbs there: sing, shout, raise, and blow.
Okay,
So sing for joy to God, shout joyfully, raise a song. I guess that's another word for sing.
okay,
And then blow the trumpet at the new moon.
yes. And then what about instruments? Take a psalm and bring what? The tambourine or the timbrel, and the pleasant harp. Okay, so he's calling, this call to worship is, a special time of coming together. But I also wanted us to pick up a couple things. If you look at your second question, when were these things to take place? Look at verse 4 for the reason this was ordained by God. Because we're going to look at this. There's a lesson to be learned here. So let's go back to Numbers 28:1. Let's pick that up. If you get there before me, then read it. Okay. You can read it out loud. Actually, Numbers. Oh, sorry, 28:11. Yeah.
At the beginnings of your months, you shall present a burnt offering to the Lord, 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 lambs in their first year without blemish.
Okay, so at the start of the months, then you would bring these special offerings to be offered, but then just skip over to 29:1. I'll pick it up. And in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work. It is a day of blowing the trumpets unto you. And so here's this special day. It's ordained by God, and we're in the Torah. So we're back at the time of Moses, and so we're looking at 1400s BC. Okay, that this was written. So God ordained this, and this is what they were to do. But then look at your third question. Why do you think in the days of Isaiah, the Lord rebuked Israel concerning the same celebration? So let's go and look at Isaiah chapter 1. And there's a reason why I'm wanting us to take the time for this. 1:10 through 17. If someone gets there, go ahead and read it, if you could read it out loud and clearly.
10 verse 17.
Chapter 1, Isaiah 10 through 17. Someone?
Hear the word of the Lord, you rulers of Sodom. Listen to the law of our God, you people of Gomorrah. The multitude of your sacrifices, what are they to me, says the Lord? I have more than enough burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fattening animals. I have no pleasure in the blood of bulls and lambs and goats. How far?
To 17.
When you come to appear before me, who has asked this of you, this trampling of my court? Stop bringing meaningless offerings. Your incense is detestable to me. New moons, Sabbaths, and convocations. I cannot bear your evil assemblies. Your new moon festivals and your appointed feasts, my soul hates. They've come and burdened me. I'm weary of bearing them. When you spread out your hands in prayer, I will hide my eyes from you, even if you offer many prayers. I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Wash and make yourself clean. Take your evil deeds out of my sight. Stop doing wrong. Learn to do right. Seek justice. Encourage the oppressed. Defend the cause of the fatherless. Plead the case of the widow.
Okay, so the question is, what happened between Numbers, where he actually ordained this celebration, in Isaiah, where he's saying this is basically an abomination to me? So what was the problem?
Sin.
Exactly. Now, remember, Isaiah was written in the 700s BC. So we've gone from the time of Moses, 1400s, to Isaiah, who writes in the 700s. So about 700 years have passed. And so what has happened in those years? The people have what? They've fallen away.
Yeah.
They are coming and they are going through the motions, but what's missing?
The heart.
Their heart.
They're not sincere.
That's right. It's their heart is not clean, he says. There's blood on their hands. They're doing evil, but they come. And so I imagine they, here they lead their big bullock, and maybe there was a competition between who could bring the biggest animal or greatest sacrifices. But here they come, give their sacrifices, but their heart is far from God. So of course, the question I want to bring out for today is, can we do the same thing? Can we come to church, especially on Easter? We can dress up nicely. We can look really good, cleaned up, like a shiny penny.
Yeah.
Sort of. Okay.
So to speak.
And but then what happens? What can our problems be that are like this? Anyone?
Life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way. Sometimes you can't make it to church, but even then, if you can't make it, what should be the heart attitude, even as we're at home with whatever trial we're facing?
And a special day.
Pardon me? Make it a special
Make
day.
it a special day no matter what.
That's right. And take some time for the Lord, but your heart should still be toward the Lord. And we'll look at will be in it today, I think Psalm 84 or 83 or 4, where you see David's away from the tabernacle and he's longing to be there. Okay, so sometimes if we're away from God's house, the longing to be there should still be in our hearts, to be with other Christians, to sing the songs, to hear the word of God preached, to worship him with your offerings, to give to other people when you talk. But these people lost it in Isaiah's day. And so, yeah, we do have these commandments in the book of Numbers. And here we are reading about it in Psalm 81. And by the way, the Psalms were written about midway between Moses and Isaiah. This would be a psalm written somewhere in the 1000 BC era. So you've got that before us here. And so here it's used as a call to worship, but when it talked about blowing the trumpets in the new moon, I went looking to see what that would be. And I was really kind of surprised at what I found. But it's a warning for us that when we come, we need to examine ourselves, examine our own hearts about why we're going. Sometimes people can go to church or do different things to be seen, or lots of reasons. But let's go ahead from there. Any thoughts on that before we move
When
ahead?
we were young, we never went out to eat or anything, you know, I mean, that was God's day. In fact, the little town we lived in, nothing was open.
Right. Yeah.
But
in-
things have changed drastically.
That's right.
everything.
In Pennsylvania, they were called the blue laws. And the blue laws protected, you were lucky to find a gas station open on Sundays. I remember the college I went to, all the recreational facilities were closed on Sundays. If you wanted to play tennis, it wasn't going to happen there on those tennis courts. Okay, but
They used to
anyway,
even have blue laws in Colorado.
did they have them?
Believe it or not.
Where? Here in Denver?
So they
I was
did?
born and raised here.
So
I can
years
remember
ago. Yeah.
Years and years ago. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, tell you what event is being discussed in verses 5 through 7? Actually, for time's sake, I'm going to just go ahead with that one. Excuse me. It's what did God do? He had sent the plagues upon Egypt, but then he delivered his people from the slavery and the servitude that they had in Egypt. And then next question, what happened at the waters of Meribah? Exodus 17:1 through 7 gives you the background. I'll hit that too because I want us to spend a little more time on another question. Moses was leading the people out of Egypt and they didn't have water. So they complained and God provided the water in Horeb by striking the rock. And so it was a miracle. God provided what they needed. Next question, what does God call his people to do in verse 8? What is a blessing described in verse 9? He called his people to listen to him. He would speak to them if they would listen. A real blessing would be that there would be no strange gods among them and no one would worship them. I have to say, one of the greatest blessings, I think, in the early years of our country, for many years, I don't know how many, but there weren't other gods here. Our people focused on the Bible, the McDuffie readers that were taught in school were all Bible based. They lasted for 120 years from the beginning of our educational system. So there weren't strange gods, but today we have many strange gods. In fact, Will was involved in a conversation just this week with an individual where that individual is Christian, and he was talking to someone who was a Muslim, a high official, and they were talking about end times. And so the question the Christian asked the Muslim is, what does the Muslim people teach about the end times? And the man answered, the Muslim man, he said, you don't want to know what they teach. And of course, the Christian man pressed him. Oh, yes, we do know. And they talked back and forth. Finally, he said, our our thinking about the last times is that all the Christians and all the Jews will be killed. We will kill them. That's quite a statement, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So Allah, okay, the moon god, okay, yes.
This morning on the news, it says that they're considering that this AI, the artificial
Yes.
intelligence, they were asking it if it was God, or if it was a God.
Oh my. So what was the answer?
Well, no, it wasn't,
Okay.
kind of, but that was in the
Yeah,
last series.
You know, there's that, in the book of Revelation, the thing I've always wondered about, there's a statue that's created and the statue can speak. And I've often thought with all this AI stuff coming, it's like, it's here.
You might find shocking. Last Sunday, I was getting ready to come to church and I had Channel 4 on. It's Sunday morning, blah, blah, blah. And they had a commercial. And it was get religion out of government. And Ronald Reagan Jr. was up there saying, I'm a devout atheist and proud of it. It's time we got religion out of the government. And I thought, what would your dad have thought on a Sunday morning?
Yeah.
They aired that commercial from Freedom from Religion and Government or something. He
Right.
wanted people to join his organization.
Right. And no wonder.
Touting atheism, you know? And-
So I imagine we'll see more of this as time
yeah,
goes by.
like Muslims and all that. You know?
Well, tell you what, thank you. We got them. They're here.
Thank you.
So be sure to pick one up on your way out. That's what you'll need for next week. Yeah.
Wow, so,
Okay. So let's ask, this is the question I want us to land on a little bit. First, question 7 and 8. What is the devastating scenario of verses 10 through 12? Someone want to read those verses? 81, 10 through 12. If that goes.
I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Open your mouth wide and I will fill it. That's 10. Did I not read the right ones?
You did.
Okay,
Go
good.
through 11 and 12.
Okay, but my people would not heed my voice, and Israel would have none of me. So I gave them over to their own stubborn hearts to walk in their own counsel.
What,
Wow.
That's right.
what was the reference?
81?
Psalm 81.
Okay.
We're in the Psalms and we'll be,
You thought they were in the song.
we probably won't be hopping around too much after this.
That's what I did. the other
Okay,
day.
so what's the devastating scenario?
They wouldn't listen. He
They-
wouldn't give them anything. All they had to do was ask for it.
That's right.
And they just, you know.
That's right. They didn't want the Lord. And they walked in their own counsels.
Yeah.
So they didn't want his word. They didn't want anything to do with God. And so to me, that is probably the worst position a person could ever be in, is to disregard, not want God. It's devastating. He reminded the people that he was the one that brought them out of Egypt and that he could satisfy them. But the people didn't listen. They didn't want him. So God gave them up to their own lusts and own counsels. And so how does that turn out when God says, okay, have it your way?
Oh, boy.
Well.
You're doomed. You're doomed.
No, I think that's one of the worst situations when he says, okay,
I'm done.
yeah, you can have it your way.
Sounds just like America now.
It does.
Yes.
That people have left the Lord and they want to purge the Lord out of everything, and they get what they deserve. They push God out of the whole country.
You're exactly right. And so what's that make, what should that bring to our hearts and minds when we see this? We want to say, I'm not going to forget.
Right.
I want God, and I'm going to let other people know
Right.
I want God in my life. I want his counsels. I don't want to go my own way.
Mhm.
I want to follow the Lord. But let's see, what is the heart of God as stated in verse 13? Oh, that my people had listened to me and Israel had walked in my way. And I'm going to go ahead
Good.
and read further. I should soon have subdued their enemies and turned my hand against their adversaries. The haters of the Lord should have submitted themselves unto him, but their time should have endured forever. In verse 16, he should have fed them also with the finest of wheat, with honey out of the rock should I have satisfied you. And so that's how this ends. It's an ironic situation because God really wanted to bless these
Yeah,
people.
that's what I got out of it.
You know, and today he really wants to bless us, and I feel we have many blessings, and we could sit and and go through
Mhm.
the blessings he's given. But I think that in this psalm there's some real lessons about not going our own way and making sure that we are following him. And but I love this fact. There's a song we sing, the finest bread he will provide. It's in one of our hymns.
Mhm.
Finest bread he will provide.
Mhm.
Da, 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 till I'm satisfied. Something like that.
Uh-huh.
You might remember it. But I've always liked that song in those lines because this is his heart for us. Any thoughts on Psalm 81 before we move on?
I found God being so merciful and kind. All you have to do is believe in me. I'm here.
Right.
And whether got here on our own. No, you didn't. You know,
Okay.
that's so like human beings, though, isn't it? Though?
Right. He drew
Even the
us.
day, isn't that awful?
That's
We
right.
have never learned.
Gotcha. Anyone else? Tell you what, let's go to Psalm 82.
All right.
Oh, that's my little wisdom statement. Listening to God, meaning listening to his word and walking in his ways, is always best. That's never changed. Consider him in all that you do. Okay, so 82 is a psalm of Asaph. So what description of God is given in verse 1? What do you learn about God in verse 1 of Psalm 82?
God takes his stand as being the judge over all and over any judge.
Yep.
Okay, he stands in the congregation of who? The mighty. I mean, these are not weak people. And he judges among the gods. Who are the gods in this?
Yeah.
In this psalm?
Judges,
Little
the
God.
magistrates.
That's right. They would be the leaders. And remember, he's in the congregation. So this is, their worship setting in the congregation. And so there are people there who do rule, who make judgments. But let's go on from there. What description is given of the rulers in verse 2? And again, who are they?
The judges of the earth. Man judges.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that's right. But what were they doing?
Or wicked.
How were they wicked?
They were not
Thinking they were
judging
divine.
things rightly.
Okay.
They showed
Judging
partiality.
according
Kind
to
of like
God.
today.
Yes, who said partiality? Okay, that's right. It says, and they accept the persons of the wicked. So if you're a judge and here's a wicked person that walks through the door and you go, oh, hi. Yes, oh yeah, take a seat right over here. And you never deal with the sin. You never, you accept that wicked person.
It's kind of like now with our prosecutors. They're just letting,
Oh my,
they're letting wicked people just.
Yeah.
it's a horrible
Just go
thing.
ahead and do it
Democrats
again,
are
it's
very
okay.
partial.
It's under $950, so you just go
Right.
ahead.
Yeah, so we have prosecutors even in thieving, that kind of thing, but they just are letting people who have actually, I saw in the news this past week, there was a young man that stabbed someone, hurt someone badly. He
Right.
was taken to jail. He was let out the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so judgment is not just. And we'll go on from there. Let's go to the next question. In verses 3 and 4, what does God require from the people who lead and rule?
He wants them to defend the poor and the fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy.
And go
Be
on.
fair. Oh, okay. Deliver the poor and the needy. Free them from the hands of the wicked.
Question, why can the poor and needy, why are they focused on here when someone's unjust? Why are they so vulnerable, the poor and needy?
They don't have the resources that rich
Right.
people do
Right.
in order to defend their own selves.
That's
Because
right.
money, money will buy lots of stuff.
There you go.
Money is power.
That's
You know,
right.
maybe in that day you could buy a judge. Yeah, do it now, if you're rich enough.
Sure.
you
It
can.
appears, yeah, for instance, what about and I'm, don't mean to go too
Yeah.
far on the political thing, but the January 6th
Yeah.
Yeah.
insurrection, they call it. Yeah, there was a young man on the news. He's been in prison since then.
Wow.
And he didn't have the money. Now he has a lawyer who's helping him, but he's gone through one thing after another. But these people, if they don't have the resources to work the system, pay for your lawyers, pay for whatever expenses you incur.
They
Sometimes that
actually
can be.
compared it to 9/11 and to the Holocaust.
I
Now,
know.
How in the world?
I don't know.
can
Yeah,
that be?
Yeah, and this young man, he had come into the Capitol. He was there for, I think, 38 seconds, 40 seconds or something. He came in, they showed the tape. He walked in, kind of looked a little bit, and then just turned around and went back out.
I had second thoughts.
And
Whoa.
so, but that guy has been in prison, and I think if they could get him, totally wipe him out. I mean, it's a long sentence that they're trying to give this guy for walking into the Capitol, which belongs
His
to the
house.
people of the United
His
States.
house.
They let
Our
them in
house.
the Capitol.
That's right.
Our
That's
house.
right.
So,
It's the people's house.
right. So this is saying one of the things you look for in a ruler is someone who is just to those who are afflicted and who really have needs. And to deliver the poor and needy, get them out of the hand of the wicked. I think that's what our leaders, Republican leaders, should be doing, is trying to get these people out of the hands of wicked people. But tell you what, let's go on from here.
Okay.
So in verse 5, what's the problem with the rulers and judges?
They're wicked. They're letting all the evil go on, and they're not judging fairly and partially.
Right. It says
They
they
know nothing.
That's right. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. What do we know about God? God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all, the Bible says.
You can't hide anything from him, that's for sure.
That's right. So if you're walking in darkness, it implies that these people really don't know God. They aren't doing things his way. Another thought here, 5, is where it says all the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have a quote, and I think I put it in your notes, by Charles Spurgeon. When all of the foundations
Yeah, you did.
are out of course, when the dispensers of law have dispensed with justice, settlements are unsettled, society is unhinged, the whole fabric of the nation is shaken. When you have people that are unjust.
Right.
You can't trust anyone, it seems.
Sounds like today.
Yeah,
Does.
as I've been reading through these Psalms, you can't help but think of what's happening today.
Yeah.
And we know we're close to those end times, but it gets a little scarier, but I'm looking for the Lord to return. Okay, question number 5. What are these men described as in verse 6? This is an important thing to get. You are God, small g. So you're the rulers, you're the leaders, you're the princes among the people. And all of you are children of the Most High. So these men, they're in the congregation, they're among his people. They should know better.
Yep.
These people should understand, but they don't. And I think that's where we're at too, a lot in our country. We have churches that are filled with people that are like this, I think, where they don't really understand that they aren't following God the way they should, and they're, ruling and trying to lead, but not in God's way. But God reminds them in verse 7, but you shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. In other words, you're just a man. Everyone's going to face death. So if we face death, who do we meet? The Lord. And then that last question, what does the psalmist ask of God in verse 8? And who would be the judge that inherits all nations? Again, we see that word arise. Whenever we see arise, oh God, what's the psalmist asking for?
God to take action.
That's right. Yeah, it's like, do it right now, immediately, arise, stand up, move, and judge the earth, for you shall inherit all nations. Has any godly leader been in charge of all the nations yet?
No.
No, God from heaven is sovereign over all things. But who shall inherit the nations? Jesus. We know that during the millennium, he will be over all the nations. So this puts this psalm in it's a messianic prophecy here in verse 8. Arise, O God, judge the earth. Who's going to judge the earth? We know Jesus is going to judge the earth. The Bible tells us that in the New Testament. For you shall inherit all nations. Any thoughts on that before we move ahead?
Well, I put down here that the wicked judges have promoted or created the poor and the affected because they're so wicked. And this is the reason the fabric of the nations are just falling apart because wicked judges have, looked the other way and
Right.
let criminals get, that's not
Right.
good,
Wicked leaders.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
Wicked leaders. Yeah.
for
Not just
instance,
judges, though. It's
Huh?
not just the
No,
judges.
not just the judges,
It's
but
rulers.
the whole
we're talking about
White House.
judges here.
yeah, the rulers, leaders.
Yeah.
For instance,
Sorry.
we don't know who's coming across our southern border. Is there an army coming across our southern border? Are there, how wicked are these people? Who knows? We don't know. But God does, and so we can count on him. Okay, and again, my little wisdom statement. A person who is fair to all is an important quality in a leader.
Yeah.
One who does not understand the ways of God is like a person walking in the dark. They have no light. Sure. For sure. And then Psalm 83. Let's go ahead and do this.
Okay.
Sometimes, and again, this is a song or psalm of Asaph, meaning it could be read or sung publicly in their worship. Sometimes we can feel that God's not responding to our prayers, that he does not care and is just keeping his divine distance. But this is not true. Here the psalmist desires God to react and to make his words and actions known. So let's look at verses 1-5 in Psalm 83. What is the problem that the psalmist is struggling with?
It's like God is being silent, number one.
Okay. Have you ever
Enemies.
say that in his enemies?
Enemies are conspiring against him all the time,
Yes.
but
And-
he doesn't think he's, it seems that God is quiet and not paying attention.
Gotcha. Have you ever had that happen
Yes.
in your prayers?
Yeah. Why don't you just be done with it?
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we often do that. Sometimes
yeah.
we do feel that it's like, God, did you hear my prayer? I'm praying. I need you to act right now. Just the way we read this sometimes.
Sometimes when I listen to the president, I'm thinking, did you hear that? You put him there, is right? I mean,
I know. I got you. Well, tell you what.
Yeah.
So his problem is that he wants to hear and God to answer. Their enemies around. And the enemies of God, how are they described? What do they do here? And we're still on 1-5.
Oh, okay.
How do you describe them? Thy enemies make a tumult. What would be another word? They make chaos. I don't think we understand that, do we? I'm being facetious, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
and they hate
conspire.
that they conspire with one another. And anything else?
They exalt themselves.
They what?
Exalt themselves.
Exalt themselves, that's
They're
true,
full of pride and
right? They
make
lift up,
everyone think that they're great.
yep, they lift up their heads against him. What about verse 4? What is it in the heart of those people? Verse 4.
To wipe out the Israelites.
Yes. What do they say? Come, let us cut them off from being a nation.
Yeah.
It's not good enough that they just are subdued. Let's cut them off. We don't even want them to be nation.
And that has not changed.
No, it
Well, it
hasn't.
was changed, 1948, Israel became a nation.
That's right.
1948, and this is when?
This would have been
Yeah, but
about
now they're
1,000
trying to get rid
BC.
of
Can you imagine that? Unbelievable.
Yes.
Poor people.
That's right. And but they said that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. We don't even want people to remember this place.
Oh.
So cut it out, get rid of it. We don't, how do you treat somebody when you have that kind of a heart? You want to destroy them completely, completely.
Yeah, that could have been.
And then catch this too. Yes, they do consult together, but they are gonna what? They form a confederacy
Yep.
against God.
Mhm.
So these people have worked together against him. And then it goes ahead in verses 6 through 10. And let's go ahead and list these groups of people.
Edom.
Okay, Edom.
Edomites.
Ishmaelites.
Okay.
Moab.
Tell you what,
Hittites.
let's take one at a time. Actually, let's just get the group together, yeah. Okay, and the Ishmaelites, who else?
Moab.
Okay, Moab,
Hagrites.
the Hagarenes. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, close enough.
Okay, and then who else?
Cabal.
Okay,
Gibal.
gotcha. Who else?
Ammon.
Who?
Ammon.
Ammonites.
Amalek.
Ammonites. Who?
Amalek.
Amalek,
Philistines.
or that Amalek,
Philistia.
Amalekites. Who else? Philistia,
Tyre.
Uh-huh.
Or Tyre.
Tyre.
With the inhabitants of
Philistine.
Tyre.
And
Assyria.
Assyria.
okay,
Assyria
Tyre.
also joined them.
Okay, who else?
Assyria.
Assyria,
Assyria.
they joined them.
Aser or Assyria.
And they all
Okay.
helped the children of Lot.
Okay, so let's go through here real quick.
Gee.
See who this,
People.
let's see who
Yeah.
this confederacy includes. So what do we know about Edom? Where does Edom come from? Does anyone?
Esau.
Esau,
Yeah.
that's right. So what do you know about Esau? Sold his birthright,
Lost his birthright.
right? But he was a person who was very physical.
He was a hunter.
Yes, that, but he did not honor God with what he did. What do you know about Ishmaelites? Who's Ishmael?
Hagar's son.
Pardon me?
Hagar's son.
That's right.
Yes.
So this would be the son of Abraham. I'll just put A. But remember, Hagar was under the law. Sarah was under grace. So really, you've got son of Abraham under the law. Not good. And if you look at his life, he actually showed up with Isaac when Abraham died, and together they buried him. But we know that they were not, their primary thing was not to honor God. What about Moab?
Lot's grandchildren.
Okay, what was the story there?
The two daughters.
Incest.
Anyway.
Okay, incest, sorry, and I'm kind of scribbling here. Moabites came from Lot's daughters. Remember, Sodom and Gomorrah had just been wiped out, and the daughters were thinking they didn't see another soul alive. So they thought, what are we going to do? There's no one else living. So I think the thing that we're going to do, we're going to have to get our father drunk. He'll come and lie with us. We'll have children, and then we'll save the human race.
So gross.
Okay, that's the story that was given. And so those were Lot's grandchildren. Actually, no, not grandchildren. Abraham's grandchildren. Lot, actually, that was Uncle Abraham. So Lot's children, the Moabites,
Oh, Lot's
his
children,
daughter.
yeah. sort of,
That's right.
yeah.
Okay, and the Hagarenes, what does that indicate? Where was Hagar from? You know the story, Abraham and Sarah. Sarah couldn't have a child. She thought a wonderful solution would be to give him another woman. his servant, which under the laws of Hammurabi, that actually was acceptable in those days. And so no wonder she thought about it, but however, she wasn't thinking about what God could do. So she gave Hagar to Abraham. And then Hagar and Ishmael were cast out. Sarah wouldn't tolerate having those two in their home. So there they went. But then there was this group of people from a lot of Egyptian influence, a lot of idolatry. And this one is Jebel. And that one I looked up, I had a hard time with. The best I could find. It was a Philistine city of Byblos, Byblos. It was located south of the Dead Sea near Petra, you know, where Indiana Jones comes running out. Okay, that's Petra. Okay, so I don't know about that, really, the history with that, but I'll just put that there if you want to look it up further. Okay, and the Ammonite, who's that? This came from Lot's children. He had 2 daughters. And the Amalekites,
They were the giants, weren't they?
you know, all I have is the Negev. They were south. I've got 2 references, Exodus 17:89 and Numbers 24:20, if you want those references. But the Amalekites were known to be idolaters. And then we had the Philistines, idolaters. What do you know about Tyre? Tyre was an amazing trade center. A lot of materialism. Okay, so that was Tyre. They weren't people who sought God. And then Assyria, what do you know about them? In 722 BC, it was the Assyrians that captured the northern, Israel was divided north-south. Assyria captured the north. So I'm going to this trouble to say all of this, that these people who formed a confederacy against the people of God were all idolaters.
Yep.
So, and there were a lot of people. So this was no small thing. You guys have a good day. See you next week. Lord willing.
3 weeks.
Oh, that's right.
3 weeks.
She pray for her.
Get
She's
your
traveling.
The new lesson.
Okay.
And don't forget your new lesson.
She won't be here next
Get
week.
your,
But she'd
she
like to
won't be
be.
here next week.
Okay. Well, tell you what. So what you've got is a confederacy of all these people. How would you like to face that? With all of these groups coming together against you and against God. But that's what we have in this chapter. And then I think for time's sake, I'll just share with you who are the men mentioned in verses 9 through 12. Because here's what the psalmist is desiring, what he wants to happen to their enemies. Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Jabin at the brook of Kison. Jabin was the king of Canaan. He was in charge of the Midianites, who he reigned from Hazor, and Sisera was the captain of his host. And then you have Oreb and Zeb, princes of Midian. But all these people were killed. That's the point I wanted. We'll just take a shortcut.
Okay.
So there isn't one of those men that were listed, Sisera, Jabin, Zeb, Oreb, Zebah, and Zalmunna. All those men were captured. They were pursued, they were captured, they were destroyed. And so the thought of this psalm is that their enemies would be just like these men, that they would die, be destroyed. Verse 12. And these people, again, the verses that show us what is in the heart of those people gives us a lot to learn. They said, let us take to ourselves the houses of God in possession. And so they wanted to take over the tabernacles, the places of worship, and so forth. So anyway, we'll go from there. And verse 16 is a key verse too. Fill their faces with shame that they may seek your name, O Lord. So he wasn't entirely calloused against them, completely destroy them if they are against you, God. But if they could just be shamed, and it would cause them to seek you, this would be good, is the implication there. And then he basically says these things against them: let them be confounded and troubled forever, let them be put to shame. But then 18, that men may know that you, whose name alone is Jehovah, are the most high over all the earth. You know, because of the victory over that confederacy, it will lift God up. Just briefly, you might want to read Ezekiel 38, which talks about a future war that has not been fought, and look at the alignment of nations, pretty much exactly what we're seeing in the world today. But one of the main things there, Russia is going to come down on Israel, that prophesies, but God is going to defeat Russia in a big way. But the reason is the same that's listed here, so that people everywhere will know that God is on his throne. And so you might want to spend some time looking at that.
Ezekiel, what was it?
Ezekiel 38.
Okay, got that.
Okay. A prophetic
Yeah.
statement. Any thoughts on 83 before we move on? We've got 10 minutes. Oh, let's go ahead. 84. Let me make sure. Yeah, let's go ahead. This is one of my favorite Psalms.
84.
Yes, how amiable are thy tabernacles, O Lord of hosts. We see the deep love for the place of worship where the ark of God rested, and it was a place of corporate worship. And the psalmist obviously did not want to miss it. But in the title too, we have that word getteth again, and it's a psalm for the sons of Korah. But let's go ahead. Question 1, how does the psalmist describe the courts of God, and what is he longing for? So consider verses 1 and 2. Anyone?
And his dwelling place is lovely,
Okay, it's a lovely
and his
place.
soul yearns for it.
Yes,
Yeah, even the smallest creature like the sparrow has found a home. It's little, you know,
yes,
it's peaceful and kind, protective.
yes. And what's mentioned in that same verse 3? You've got the sparrows found a house, the swallow a nest for herself, where she can lay her young. But even your altars, O Lord of hosts, my King and my God, blessed are they that dwell in your house. They will be still praising me. So you've got this comparison with the birds. They find a nest, a place to raise their young.
Yeah.
And so the altars of God, they should be this precious to us. Fortunately, though, God's not limited to a place, but can be loved and worshipped from anywhere. But the psalmist knows that in his courts, there he may be corporately worshipped and loved, and songs may be sung to him. And what's the obvious problem of the psalmist here? If he's longing for the courts of God, and he's fainting, to be there, what's the obvious problem? Is the court of what?
He's troubled.
Troubled. Yeah, but he's not there.
Right.
He's away from there. He's not able to get there. And so he's longing to be there because he's separated somehow.
Doesn't want to miss it.
Doesn't want to miss it. That's right.
His soul is thirsty to be able to go there and to worship.
Yes. And if you've got a thirsty soul, the Lord's the one who, Jesus says, come unto me and you will never thirst. But let's go ahead. So let's go on to question number What's being described in verses 5-7?
Sorry,
Oops, That's
I
okay.
have to take it.
Oh, I understand. Hey, so what's being described in verses 5-7?
We must find our strength in God alone.
Okay. Tell you what, for time's sake, let me just fill you in here. Because this one was always kind of a tough one. Blessed is the man whose strength is in God, as you just mentioned, in whose heart are the ways of them who passing through the valley of Baca make it a well. The rain also fills the pools. They go from strength to strength, every one of them in Zion appeared before God. So I believe this is a reference to the pilgrimage to Jerusalem for religious festivities. Those who make their way there are blessed. They can go through the valley of Baca, or you can say the valley of tears. You okay?
I got up too fast. My head was.
Okay.
That was my friend from Kansas, and she was in Bible study yesterday. So we'll
You'll
catch up
connect.
tonight.
Okay, that's right.
Alicia,
Yes,
can I just share
yes.
this verse 6 and an experience I had with that verse?
Go ahead.
When in 2018, we were going to move from our house on the prairie where we'd lived for 32 years and where we had our ministry. And the Lord, through a series of circumstances, told us it was time to move. Well, that wasn't easy. But that verse 6, passing through the valley of Baca. So I looked that up, and the sons of Korah, when they wrote this psalm, was using this as an object lesson because there is no such place. There isn't a valley of Baca in Israel. It's an object lesson or an analogy because it means the place of weeping or sadness or trouble or hardness. But here it says passing through that hard valley, they make it into a spring. And you think of a spring as being something that's refreshing and where the wildflowers grow. And here it says right in Baca, right in the middle of all of that trouble, those people that are going through it make it into a spring. How does that happen? It happens because of all the verses that surround that. Or the last verse in that psalm, O Lord of hosts, how blessed is a man who trusts in you.
Yes.
And that was my own experience. God brought me to the valley of Baca, but he also said, you know what, you trust in me and it's going to be a spring. It's going to be the flowers blooming. And that truly was. So some of you that are in our Sunday school class remember praying that our house would sell because we bought this one in Arvada and our house didn't sell. So we were in kind of a pickle, but the Lord taught me not to trust him with fear for the outcome, but to trust him anticipating joy for the outcome. And it sounds like I'm bragging, and I hope it doesn't come across that way. I just want to say that when we're in the valley of Baca,
Yes.
and we eventually all walk through there, that God can make it into a spring for us.
I've got
Trust
Yes.
him.
dryness. We have periods of dryness.
We do.
Okay.
Spiritually.
Right, but the Baca, I did find it's the valley of tears, the
That's
valley
right.
of weeping, but they find a well of springs there. But when people come to these festivities, where are they coming from? They're coming from all over Israel. It's not like, like the Passover celebrations. They come. They have to come up through the wilderness. It's rough terrain. That wilderness area of Israel is really tough. But even as you come from the north, it's a long walk.
Really?
So it's a challenging time. It might be tough, but there are blessings to be found, as Ellen so nicely put it. But I like this. They go from strength to strength. Every one of them in Zion appear before God. So when they say strength to strength, as they're walking, the closer they get to Jerusalem, where the celebration is, what happens? The people run into other people. Okay, they go from strength to strength. Here we are, this small, but we just ran into them. Our group gets bigger. It gets bigger and it gets bigger as they come to Jerusalem. Because there were thousands and thousands of people who came to those festivities. That's one. If you see Barb Okamoto sometime, ask her about the time she was in Jerusalem during the Feast of Tabernacles. She didn't know it, and it was a zoo from what she shared. But tell you what, there were a lot of people, but everyone has to appear before God there, as this verse says. So we want to remember these things. I love what Ellen shared about the Valley of Tears, of weeping. God can make it a well. And it says the rain also fills the pools. That would be something in Israel as well, because you're in a land where there's no water. I think down by the Dead Sea, I think there's like 3 or 4 inches of rainfall in a year. Okay, so those areas are really, really dry. So when you go to Qumran, where you go to the ruins, there's all kinds of cisterns. They caught every drop of water that they could. But anyway, that's where we are with that. Any thoughts on Psalm 84? And we're just going to take a couple minutes to look at 85. But any thoughts that you might have? Okay, and so let's go ahead and look at 85. To the chief musician, again, a psalm for the sons of Korah. What does the psalmist remember in verses 1 through 3?
How God brought back the captivity of Jacob.
Okay, he restored the fortunes of Jacob. For time's sake, he remembers that God blessed the land. God forgave the sin of his people. He covered all their sin. He withdrew his wrath. He turned from his hot anger. So we see that God really did some great things. But in 4 through 7, he's got these pleas. Restore us again. Look what you did in the past, but please restore us again. Put away your anger and don't be angry forever. And he asks those questions. Will you prolong your anger to all generations? Will you not revive us again, that your people may rejoice? Show us your love, grant us your salvation. And then we looked at the I wills of David, but there's an I will of Asaph here in verse 8. What does he see here? What is his determination, his heart?
Hear him speak of peace to his people.
Yes. I will hear what God the Lord will speak. And then, as you said, he'll speak of peace. And what's his last request in that verse?
Don't let him return to their evil ways.
That's right. Don't let him return to folly. But again, we need as Christians to have some I wills in our lives. What will we do to honor and serve God and keep ourselves right with him? And then verse 4, I want us to focus on that. What declarations does the psalmist remind us of in verse 9? Question 4, I mean, not verse 4. Verse 9, what is the blessing that is given to the people who fear God? His salvation is near to them that fear him, that glory may dwell in our land. You know, I think because our land in time past, people honored the Lord, even during the Civil War. There were times when at night, after the battle is done, the North and the South, they would sing hymns together. Wow. If they were within range, hearing range, they'd sing hymns. Wow. They would, there's a book called Christ Around the Campfire. There were a lot of amazing things that took place. And that's even at the worst time in our history. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, why do all these people want to come to our country? I think sometimes now they want to hurt us, some of the people who come, but in time past, all the immigrants who come here because they're looking for freedom.
Freedom.
And, but where does that freedom come from? You know, our Constitution is based on rights that are given to us by God, not man to man, but they recognize that God has certain things. And that's an amazing thing. So I believe that there really was glory in our land when we walked with the Lord collectively. And then the gifts of God found in verses 10 through 13. We'll close with this. There's the steadfast love and faithfulness, they meet. Righteousness and peace, they kiss. Isn't that quite a statement?
Righteousness and peace have kissed.
Yeah.
Just right now.
Yeah, righteousness and peace have kissed each other. Haven't you ever heard at the cross, the righteousness of Jesus Christ meets peace? We can have peace with God because of his righteousness. Righteousness and peace kissed at the cross. And then also mercy and truth. The truth is we're sinners. We need a savior, but God's mercy. So mercy and truth kissed at the cross as well, as we think about it. So my little statement on wisdom. God has the power to restore us from wherever we have fallen. His gift should never be forgotten. So any thoughts, any closing thoughts? Someone, you have something you'd really like to say, you can say.
Now's the time to spill.
Okay. Tell you what, let's close up shop here.